So I'm sitting here today with New York Times bestselling author David Baldacci. Thank you for taking time to sit with us.
Oh,
And
thank
talk.
you.
Yeah. So, in your most recent novel, Hell's Corner, you feature the somewhat elusive members of the Camel Club, and so this will be the fifth novel in which they're featured. And I'm kind of curious, like, how exactly were they conceived?
I first thought of Oliver Stone, the head of the Camel Club, when I first moved to Washington, D.C. over 20 years ago to practice law. And back then, this was before Oklahoma City, so Pennsylvania Avenue was open to car traffic in front of the White House. And there were a lot of what I call permanent White House protesters, people with little tents and pamphlets, and they were protesting nuclear war, environmental issues, and things like that. And there was one big banner strung between two trees, I'll never forget it, and said, "Have a nice doomsday." And I thought, maybe I should move back home. This is kind of a crazy place. But then I thought, what if there's a guy there who had a backstory, who was there for another reason, he was protesting, but there was something mysterious about him. And then that idea just sat in my head for nearly 20 years. And when I sat down to sort of conceive this Camel Club, group of miscreants and conspiracy theorists, that guy, that idea and concept popped back out of my head, and off I went.
Well, and they are quite a motley crew when you start to look at each of the members. And what is it you think? What do you think it is about each of them that really kind of brings the readers back again and again?
I think a couple of things. One, they're underdogs. They're the most unlikely set of heroes you will ever run into.
That is very true.
And secondly, they've all really been through the ringer in life. Bad things have happened to all of them, but they have a second chance to do something. And certainly Oliver Stone, his career with the government is not one he's proud of. He's trying to make restitution, really, not only for what he did, but really for himself, so he can look in the mirror. I think people respect people who go and do that, try to make it right a second time, they get a second chance. So you got the underdogs and the people having a second chance in life. You just sort of naturally root for those types of people. And they're really popular. I'm book tours. I was on a book tour in Atlanta, and I walked in, and there was a guy there with a camel stuffed animal on a post. He carried it into the store, and I walked by, and he looked at me, and he said, "You know what I want? More camel." And everybody was chanting, "More camel, more camel."
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so people really have gotten into this club.
Yeah. So the title Hell's Corner, it really references a specific area in Washington. Can you kind of talk about the background of that?
Yeah, Hell's Corner is the name, the nomenclature they use for Lafayette Park. And the environs around Lafayette Park. That is the maximum protection package. So the federal law enforcement agencies call it Hell's Corner, and here's why they call it that. There are competing jurisdictions in that 7-acre property. The D.C. Metropolitan Police, they have jurisdiction over the street, Pennsylvania Avenue, in front of the White House. That's their turf. The Park Police, the National Park Police, have jurisdiction over the grass in the park. The Secret Service have jurisdiction over the sidewalks and the Jersey barriers. So Secret Service agents at the academy, when they train, they're actually taught, if they have a person of interest who's either in the street or on the grass, to go, grab them, lift them up, carry them to the sidewalk, slam them down, and arrest them on the sidewalk, so they won't have a jurisdictional problem with the other two competing agencies. So because it's max protection, nothing ever bad's supposed to happen there, and if something bad ever happens there, heads are going to roll. So that's a career wrecker. And also because of the competing jurisdictions, it's Hell's Corner. They hate it.
So now, in previous Camel Club novels, we've met, I guess you could call them special reinforcements, so such as FBI agent Alex Ford or the con artist Annabelle Conroy. And in Hell's Corner, we meet Mary Chapman, and she is an MI6 agent. So can you talk a little bit about her working relationship with Oliver?
Right. I love bringing Mary Chapman, the Brit element, into this. She is a force to be reckoned with, but I start her slowly. And she came over because the British Prime Minister was near the vicinity of this awful thing that happened in Lafayette Park, and they think maybe he was the target. So if the British Prime Minister involved, MI6, which is tasked with external security around the world for British interests, she's sent over to work with Oliver Stone. And it's an unlikely sort of unwieldy partnership from the get-go because Stone really isn't sure who she is or what her agenda is, and she's sort of a firebrand on her own. But I love putting sort of opposites together and see if they can work together. And she brings sort of a very different cultural element to this than any other Camel members would have brought to it. So throwing her into the mix. And again, this book is really a smoke and mirrors, almost the whole novel. You never know, what's the real agenda for most of the characters in this novel. And certainly Mary Chapman is included in that group.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because I noticed that as I'm reading it, I had to kind of pause and digest almost everything because it was such a complex storyline. So I mean, one would think with as many novels as you've written, you can just, go in, you sit down, you go through your process, and it's done. But how hard is that to create those smoke and mirrors?
It's very hard because it's a house of cards, and if you miss one card and misplace it just a little bit, put it at the wrong angle, it all tumbles down. So if you get little details wrong, the big picture doesn't work at all. So it's very hard. The reason I love complex stories. I love building that because it's sort of a battle of wits between me and the readers. And I want to build stories where I'm guiding them down the road and they think they know what the story's going to be about, and then I pull the rug out from under them. That's the effect I love to have over people, and I work very hard to try to create that effect. But for me, I never think I know what I'm doing when I'm writing a book. Every book I write is like my first novel all over again. And I think that brings sort of a freshness and an edge. Fear is a great counteractive to complacency. Because you've written 20 books, you think, oh yeah, I know how to do this. How did I do it last time? But once a writer thinks they know to do it, that's when they're dead. That's when they lose their edge and they're gone.
So with all the research that goes into your novels, how close do you feel the storylines are to real life?
I think that all sort of the technical underpinnings are all accurate. If I tell you an agency does this with this sort of equipment and this sort of procedure, that's all true. Then I take and meld on top of it a fictional story that pushes reality to the next level. What could be, what might happen if certain elements fall into place. So I'm not bound by something that has happened. I'm bound by something that could happen. And I'm always trying to push that envelope, but I've got that really tough structural underpinning that is based completely on fact. So in Hell's Corner, a lot of the stuff the ATF does, a lot of the explosive methodology and all that, totally spot on. That's exactly how they do what they do. And I won't give it away, but some of the other techniques they use that we see every day, it is based on a truism that this can never happen. And in Hell's Corner, unfortunately, that happened that blows that truism right out of the water.
So when you start to delve in and look at each member of the Camel Club, professionally, they are extremely intelligent. Personally, we've seen growth in each novel. How is it that you balance, that almost personal naivete with the complicated situations that you're putting them in?
I oftentimes I will use that naivete as sort of a pause breath moment to give a little comical effect. I use Caleb Shaw a lot to sort of let people pause and take a breath and laugh because everything else is so tense.
Yes.
His relationship with Reuben is pretty funny, Annabelle as well. But at the same time, when you show those sort of weaknesses and foibles that we all have, it also humanizes those characters.
Right.
And it makes you sort of want to root for them. Or you could roll your eyes at something stupid Caleb does, but you also know at the end of the day, if he had to put his life on the line for his friends, he would without hesitation. He may do it sometimes grumbling along the way, but he will always be there for them. And I think what really makes the Camel Club tick is that bond of friendship, that they will lay everything out on the line. And it's been interesting over the 5 books to see how much the characters sort of have grown. Certainly in this book, Oliver Stone, you can see the layers of complexity being peeled away, that what really drives him. He's almost sort of fatalistic in this book in some instances. It's like, this is what I deserve kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's also a survivor.
So when you first wrote them into that first novel for the Camel Club, did you see turning this into a series, or was that going to be a standalone?
When I first started writing it, I thought it was going to be a standalone.
Yeah.
And maybe a good sort of way to tell a story, a nice venue, and I can move on to something else. Towards the end of the book, I was like, boy, these guys have some juice.
Yeah.
They've got some chemistry, and maybe I can bring them back in something else. And I did in the Collectors, and that's when I brought Annabelle Conroy in, because that made a lot of sense for a lot of reasons to bring her in, and also sort of freshened up the club a little bit and added the female element beyond what was in the first book. But no, when I first started writing it, I didn't really think they were going to come back, but as I wrote the book and kept going, then that's really, I got hooked too.
So do you have any more in mind?
Well, I tell people, at this point with the Camel Club, every book you read about them may be the last one.
Yeah.
I will only bring them back if I have a story I think is worthy of them and that will allow me to sort of push them forward in characters and to show them growing more. I wouldn't bring them back just because they're really popular and will sell a lot of books. Quite frankly, I've sold a lot of books and I'm comfortable with that. For me, it's the next challenge. What do I want to spend the next X part of my life working on? So if another Camel Club story comes up that really hits me, yeah, they'll be back.
So my last question for you, and I think that a lot of readers would love to know this, is do we or can we anticipate another David Baldacci book getting made into a movie?
Yeah, I know. I thought we were close with the Camel Club because David Heyman, who did all the Harry Potter films,
Yeah.
loved the Camel Club. And I met with David both at Warner Brothers in LA, and he brought my family up to watch the filming of the Deathly Hallows in London, which was just terrific. He's a great guy. I think the problem has been is sort of Hollywood is, they don't think that anybody wants to watch pictures based in DC anymore, or political movies. They don't want to see them, and that's sort of that wall he got. Now, True Blue, a book I wrote last year about the DC Metropolitan Police and a couple of two sisters, police chief, and her younger sister who was a detective, a disgraced detective. That's being developed as a network television series. You know, that's in development now, and maybe it'll be on TV. So we have that going on, and a couple other projects that are sort of in development as well. But I'd love to see the Camel Club hit the big screen. I think it would be great. It's a, it would be, I think, an intelligent movie with a nice amount of action and a good whodunit. So I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed too. So thank you again for taking time and sitting down with us today.
Thank you.